Hi, everyone. Greetings. It is another Monday. And as you can see, I've got spectacular sunlight just beaming in from the windows. It's bright and beautiful. It's also crisp and cool. I've already been outside several times and I've taken the dogs out. Oops, this looks like it's a little bit better. Taken a shower, a very, very, very quick one, a minute one. Heated up my ginger hot toddy. And I think before we get started about living the lie when the Matrix becomes a documentary, meaning when it becomes a documentary to you, when you have been chiseled and cracked open enough. And many of you might even be 60s, 70s, and you never really were cracked open yet. You might be in your 40s and think, I'm pretty darn awake. And you might not be. Just saying. So it's of the essence that I bring these to you in this timing. And I'm hoping to get many of them, brought to you so that you are aware where people may not be aware. I wanted to share a couple of things with you today because I like to also put suggestions on that you'll be able to get on your own. And I really hope that wherever you are, whatever you're going through, if you're going through it completely alone, as I have had to do with most of my son's passing and holidays and things like that, I hope that others will gravitate to you like they're doing with me right now. Gravitating to me and saying, wait a minute, people aren't looking for a leader, not a teacher, not a government, not a president. They're looking for family. They're looking for connection. And you can't build that through a text. You can't build that through just kind of hit or miss and just solving a few little cursory problems. I use my words because I'm a wolf element. A wolf animal is my primary animal. Raven and crow, secondary. Wolf is very, very careful, especially when she becomes the elder, because she has gone through things. See, there's that one gnat again. So let me show you a couple of these. Look at the gnat. I swear, it does it every time. So I don't think it did it last night. But anyway, I hope that you're well. I hope that you're not struggling alone. I know that it's a very, very painful time, that not just myself, that many of you have lost your children. And I know this because I've been invited to a group on Facebook that new women are added to, it seems like every day. Some of these women, these mothers, have lost 2 and 3 children. This was never going to happen to any of us. None of us were going to go through this. We were going to enjoy our children. We took care of them. They were going to help take care of us. We protected them. They were going to protect us on the physical plane. Our grandchildren were going to continue our bloodline. But now this is being interrupted. And by way of this interruption, when you lose your own child, you will be cracked open in a way that you're like, whoa, I was seriously sleepwalking. Now you'll go through a range of emotions, and some of them will be very toxic. They'll be very bitter. They'll be angry. They'll be the feeling of being robbed, shortchanged, life interrupted, life taken too soon. The fact that doctors command the respect, the privilege and the entitlement that they do, but that they could just dispense these things with knowing for well over a decade that many of these opiates were going to hijack the brains of many of our people. And many of our people were hijacked in the limbic system, in the amygdala, the emotional centers of the brain. for reasons that I'm going to discuss in my third book. So this was all pursuant to a plan. And when you wake up, meaning that you start to go, wait a minute, you start questioning, you're the one posting the memes on Facebook, you're the one thinking of how awake you are, and then bam, 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 a few things come and they slam you, and you ride through harsh reality. You go, whoa, these people out here, a lot of them are innocently ignorant, and they don't even realize what's coming at them. Okay, so I want to show you one product that I use in my home. I've only bought 2 bottles of it because it lasts forever. But I often feel really perplexed, especially when we entered into the pandemic that we're in right now. We're told we're in a pandemic, okay? And everywhere I went, and I know you'll remember this, but right away, everyone was Lysol, antibacterial, hand sanitizer all the time. I'd go in and many of the clerks were putting hand sanitizer between each and every customer that was coming through their line at Aldi's, at grocery stores. And I said, do you realize what that stuff is doing to you? This product is by 7th Generation. Can you read what it says? Kills, we like that word, right? Kills, conquer, battle. Kills 99.99%. Do you see what it says? Not just bacteria, 99.99 of bacteria and viruses. I bought this bottle way before COVID. I don't use it very often. If the dogs and I are tracking things in and I mop, and on rare occasions, I use a little bit of bleach. Because of what's been introduced infection-wise into our environment. And thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate seeing you all here. This is a disinfectant spray, but guess what? Although there is SLS in it, sodium lauryl sulfate, which I'm not wild about, 7th Generation put together an amazing product. I know, but we can't afford to use that in our apartment complex. We can't afford to use that in our business. Well, you sure as heck can't afford to keep poisoning people, can you? I mean, you can't speak out of one side of your mouth and talk about how virulent the virus is, and then out of the other side of your mouth, you're going to talk about how you've got to use things like Lysol, and even people are combining cleaners, which if you don't know is a really, really bad decision. This one is made with thymol, which is essential oil of thymus, or excuse me, of thyme, okay, thyme, T-H-Y-M-E, thyme essential oil. I've got about 30 bottles of essential oils in there. I've been using essential oils since 1995. So that's 25 years now I've been using, and I mean actively using. They're in my hair, they're on my skin, they're in my bath, they're in my Epsom salts. They've been in my medicine. I've eaten and drank, have had drinks with essential oils, and the dogs get a rub down with essential oils. You want to be really careful when you use with canines because they don't always like what you might pick for them. So give them the opportunity to see if they like it or not. All right. So I'm going to flash this over to the other ingredients. Okay. It's got the vanilla and thyme scent to it. So this bottle has lasted me, no joke, probably 2.5 years now already. And I can tell I'm kind of getting down to the end of it. But what a great investment. 99.99 of bacteria and viruses. Okay, so if you spend $7 or $9 a bottle, lasts you about 2 years, you've got it on hand, okay? All right, super positive stuff here. I'm gonna show you, bend down and pick up one more thing and show you. I like and have eaten wild rice for a very long time. And I am stocked up on it because, if there's another one of these showdown, lockdown, slow down, business, suffocating type things that we're going through, which in my opinion are unnecessary. You're going to need to have something at the house that you can prepare. And even Dr. Sabi was fond of wild rice, whereas a lot of the stiffening starchy foods, and this still is starchy, but it's going to have more of an electrical component to it because wild rice isn't rice at all. It's shaped like rice, but it's gathered from the rice, the lakes, in Minnesota, especially where I live now. And so here's a couple that you can actually get even at Walmart. I know a lot of people have a Walmart in their area. And so here is an organic wild rice. All of these are $5 or $6 a bag. Now, my favorite wild rice of all is Spirit Lake. Each lake has a name, just like Cold Mother, Lake Superior, Mother Superior, Cold Mother. There's Rice Lake and White Medicine Lake and Grand Lake and Big Lake and Fond du Lac. I mean, there's all these different lakes. Spirit Lake has, in my mind, the way they process it and the taste of the wild rice, it's absolutely the best. What's up, Tara? Good to see you. Excuse me. So in terms of stocking up, if you've got food stamps, you got SNAP benefits, you've got a little extra cash, someone gave you a $20 tip because you did a massage or whatever. What a good investment, right? Fill up the gas tank. Make sure you've got water filtration. Get yourself a bottle of the antibacterial that I just showed you. If you didn't see, you can rewind and start the video and you'll see it. And get yourself about 4 or 5 bags of wild rice to have on hand. So that's one. I used to think this one was kind of yucky, but the way that it's processed, you really need to use 1 cup of wild rice and 4, just a little less than 4 cups of water. And typically what I do is I don't want to cook and cook and cook. I don't want to have it, even though I learned in Ayurveda that eating leftover food is not as nutrient rich food as preparing it fresh. And cooking certainly isn't what preparing raw food would be, right? So when I'm helping people to heal, they need to have at least some raw food, at least half of their diet, their daily diet is raw food. And then when the winter months come, we don't always want. There's wants and needs, right? And so the want, I'm clarifying it's want. We kind of want warm cooked food because it's familiar to us. It's what we know. So this is another brand. I think I priced it at $5.65 a bag. And I can get a couple of huge pans by doing 2 cups of this wild rice, 2 cups of this with just shy, so about 7 3/4 cups of water. It's going to look a little watery. You're going to bring it to a boil. You're going to turn it down and let it kind of simmer on the stove. You really need to give it the full 45 minutes or so. And then I'll even go out and walk the dogs and shut the fire off once it's been cooking for at least 35 minutes. And I'll come back in, 10, 15 minutes later if it's really cold outside. I'm coming in 10 to 15. And I'll come in and my rice is sitting there all fluffy and all the water's been, maximized, taken in by the rice. So that's a brand. Okay. These are all about $5 a bag. Some of them are a little less, and you can even find cracked wild rice if you don't mind that it's not perfect in shape. And so here's another one, also, in the $5 category. Okay. All right. This is 100% Minnesota cultivated wild rice. Okay. Now I'm going to bring up my ginger hot toddy. This is just simply, I had bought an apple cider one day and I scrub out the jar and I'm going to mix it because my cinnamon, my honey and everything gets in there. Take a drink because my mouth is getting dry. I saw the video lag for a moment. On my corresponding Facebook page, Naturally with Karen, I show myself, I show the juicer that I'm using, and I'm juicing a nice, hand size with probably 4 or 5, 6 fingers. They're called fingers of ginger. and I put it on the bamboo cutting board and I slice it up, because if you just throw that in the juicer, or you just break off the whole finger, about yay long, and you put that in the juicer, really clogs up the juicer. It's got hair inside the ginger, and it can get really tough. And then you get frustrated and you're like, I don't want to juice the darn ginger, just forget it. And then I put the ginger juice, like maybe it comes up to like here, in a big mason jar. And I add lots of water to it. I add maple syrup. I add the real cinnamon, the good tasting cinnamon, which is Ceylon, Ceylon. I add that cinnamon to it. And then what I did today is, I don't have a microwave. I've never owned one. I'm 59. I never allowed one in my home. And I put it on the stove. I don't want to bring it to a boil and just kill everything that's good in here, right? Especially if I'm going to add raw honey to it. So I just warm it up just gently. So it's just nice and warm. It doesn't have to be super, super piping hot. And I've added my water. I added my ginger concentrate, which I had in the refrigerator. I still have some left to enjoy it later, or even tomorrow when I rise, in what you call the morning. My cinnamon's in there. So the cinnamon and the ginger and the maple syrup that I put in there, and then lastly the raw honey, and I've got a whisk and I'm whisking it, and my filtered water's in here, all are going to be very medicinal in terms of helping me to regenerate and remove phlegm and inflammation, helping to keep my cells happy and healthy, and helping to keep my elements happy and healthy. So this is what, I call the hot toddy. After I used to go to the Wedge in Minneapolis when I would be in the cities all the time. The Twin Cities of Minnesota are called the cities. And I would go to a health food store, a natural food store called the Wedge, and they have the drink there. It's called the hot toddy. So that's what this is, okay? Those are a couple of hot tips. Now, beginning my life, 1961, being born in San Francisco, coming in feet first, my eyes were dilating a different way. My leg was turned around, but the doctor just handled the breech birth, right, with my mother. My mother was scared. The room was stainless steel. It was nothing like the options that women have today to do natural lotus birth, unassisted births, home births, right? And so even when I set out to birth my son in 1995, I had a birthing kit. I'd hired a midwife and had a place reserved to do a water birth. But I had that backup with that obstetrician just in case. You just never know, what could potentially happen, especially if it's your first, like it was with me. So 61 to 1976, I was really learning primarily from my family. And I was learning a lot from my grandmother. And I was learning a lot by also staying with my paternal grandmother, who had a huge garden and turtles. It was the 1970s when I started learning from Rastafari elders. Now I was 17, 18, 19, and until 1981, 83. And I was learning about word sound. And I couldn't believe, just what spelling and capitalization, I don't normally stumble on words, of the letters on our certificates, our birth and our death and our marriage, and all these certificates that have to be produced in life, which they really don't. And you know it and I know it. I was a 33-year-old, nearly turning 34-year-old woman when I gave birth to my son, Zawa, who passed a little over a year ago. I feel like we were going through a science fiction movie and we were spit out after being in a video game, just going in high pressure. And so my adrenals are fairly busted. They're rising a little bit each day. In the 1980s, I also made several trips across country and eventually made them by myself between Minnesota to California. It's a pretty good distance going through many, many states. I would stop in Sedona, Arizona, stop in Idaho, stop and camp somewhere, car camp in my car. And then finally in 1987, I took a trip on my own to Europe to meet a man I'd met while I was working waitressing in a restaurant called the Rusty Pelican in Cupertino, California. It was helping me to pay for my own college, which I did. And this man, whose name is Eric, lived in Paris, France. and said that he would take me over to Switzerland on the train and that runs through Europe. And so I ended up going over there with someone that I really didn't even know that well. And I was on the plane by myself thinking, wow, I'm a world away from everything I've ever known. And this is something that, while it frightened me, at the same time it excited me, because here I was, a person in their 20s, a woman in her 20s, and I wanted to see what was out there. And I knew that I had a purpose in life, just like you do. And so, we went and traveled all over for a period of a couple of weeks. I came back and it was like, whoa, my horizons were very much widened. Okay. On the other hand, my sibling didn't really do much of that. My family, my biological nuclear family, mom, dad, brother, all this, they didn't really do much of that. I went to college and it was philosophy and psychology, and oh my gosh, I just wanted to learn more and more. It was incredible. And then being a copper toxic woman, which I didn't know who was going to inform me. I started to get a little crazy, started to look a little bipolar, started to just, so I was so hungry to experience life because of my very, very high copper levels. They caused me to hemorrhage and bleed and have all kinds of problems on a gynecological level a little bit later in life. They caused me to go into issues that were very much, I would definitely say in retrospect now, postpartum. But to me, you're ill-informed, and by ill-informed, living in the matrix means that everyone around you is ill, mentally, physically, spiritually, from living in their litter box, from going to their just over broke, their jobs, from being in institutions that are like penal institutions that you call schools for 12 long years. You come out and they don't know how to germinate seeds. They don't really know how to grow food. They're going to get out on the plantation and figure out how to make money. But now the plantation is all of a sudden changing all the rules. I'm going to keep going. So around 1993, I go to Mexico several times. I get on a plane, first with a coworker who was a little bit younger than me at the law firm that I had hired, because I was now a senior paralegal, had worked my way through college, worked my way through being a legal secretary for several years at big firms like Robinson and Wood in San Jose, insurance defense law. So I learned a little bit about that, or maybe a lot about that, reviewing depositions, and worked my way into that 2-year certificate, 88 and 89. I graduated with an AA and a paralegal certificate with an emphasis on family law. Before I selected family law in 1988 as my emphasis for my paralegal certification, my first choice, remember, I lived by the sea, was maritime law. So I was looking and looking and looking at it, and I'd had basic courses in law where they were covering maritime law because I lived a stone's throw from the Pacific Ocean, and it was kind of a big deal. It was going to be in demand. I thought, wow, I really like that. I had done scuba diving. I'd done modeling. From 15 to 17 years of age, I was doing high fashion ramp modeling, and we called it freeze modeling at Montgomery Ward's and Sears, where you'd kind of have an outfit on and you'd be the live model in the store. I just could laugh about that now. But anyway, it was part of my journey. My mother put me in a charm school, where you had to walk on the ramp and you had to put the books on your heads and do everything proper. So I've played the part, so to speak. Okay. And that's what I'm going to get into. I've played the part, and I want you to examine your part. And that's what this live love stream is all about. Is I want you to examine, like I said yesterday, you're going to examine that poop, that pee, that sweat, your eyes, your energy, your posture, your hair growth, what's going on. Okay. So now it was 1993 that I took my last trip around Christmas, and I went down to Palenque and Chiapas, which is down by Guatemala, and a revolution broke out, Zapatistas and all, and I was in the middle of that, and I had to find a bus and get back. I was over meditating on the ruins, thinking that 2012 2012 rather was going to be the big deal. I mean, not 2012, the year 2000 was going to be a big deal. And then 2012 was really intimated about on the Mayan calendar. And now it's December 21st of 2020 that's being talked about by Guru Murthy. Okay, so in 1994, I was in Jamaica with my son's father, meeting his parents and his huge extended family and his father who passed. I gave prophecy about that. A month before he passed, I said, Daddy's going to pass of a heart issue. I've heard this from the ancestors. I've always kept very, very high level prophecy, very, very humble and to myself, where I think in retrospect now, a lot of people would have really milked this because I see others doing, and often at times far less than what I was giving, and people knew this. But people just it's kind of like if you try to talk with them today about, are you up for the injections? You get the blank, the fluoride stare. Okay, so these trips opened me. MK opened me at age 4. Grandmother opened me from 1961 to 1976, reading Merlin Stone and reading the Bible and saying, see, here's where the prophecy is, and giving me a couple select prophecies of her own about my own life in the future, which are happening today, which is really, really, really incredible. Okay, so on and on and on, because of the Rastafari elders, meaning natural life, natural livity, it's called, right? Eating natural foods, because in 1984, being really almost drug into raw foods for reversing cancer class when I really didn't want to, really didn't care about changing my diet, right? But because this friend just kept pushing, and I took this class, which went week after week after week for a couple of months, with Pamela Masters, who I have not been able to find. If you can find her, I'd love to give her a big warm hug and tell her she legit changed the course of my entire life. So changing my diet, listening to the Rastafari elders, and getting rid of the tell-a-lie. Peter Tosh called the television, your TV, the tell-a-lie. Got rid of it. I was like, that's it. I was ready to do it. 1984, I learned about the food. I started really opening up even more and more and more and more. I started questioning when the dentist would do the 6-month cleaning. And I'd say, this doesn't feel right that my whole mouth is full of these silver mercury amalgams. And I want to do a whole live stream just on mercury amalgams. I've got a list of about 12 live streams I want to do. And I know timing is really critical for several reasons, some of which you know and some of which you don't, because they're personal. So I'd really like to get them done so they're here. So I might even double up where I start doing 2 a day once in a while. So I started changing my clothing. So the part that I was playing as the paralegal, who was going into court and driving the BMW and, well manicured and a little bit of mascara on and stuff like that, I started changing it little by little by little. I started really pushing back, subverting the paradigm, subverting under, vert, green, subverting the dominant paradigm. There used to be a lot of bumper stickers like this in Santa Cruz years and years, even before my son was born. Okay. I realize intentionally bringing in a melanated child, intentionally summoning an ancestor, meaning that all of our loved ones that are no longer in a physical body, that whether or not you believe in reincarnation, the flower comes back, the flower of life returns, okay, or not. Whether or not you believe in bilocation, I do, I believe in multi-location, meaning that your essence, who you are as a spirit, your will, your persona that is the infinite persona of you, that is connected with all and everything, meaning you are one. You are the one. Of course you are. I am you. I'm a reflection of you in the infinite number of reflections. I was explaining this to a young man who went by the name Nature Boy many, many, many years ago. And I was explaining this to the woman I went to Mexico with in 1993. Angie Lamonti was her name. Okay. So I changed my clothing. I stopped striping my head with highlighting and spiral perms and stuff like that. I switched over to braids, dreadlocks. This is my fourth set of dreadlocks that are completely natural. Okay. And there's a lot more that are under my hat. There's one that hasn't really formed, and it's this one, and I'm just going to celebrate it. And I've got a nice big one over here on this side. And you will resemble your own beautiful tree, the tree of life. Okay. I'm going to put my glasses on, so we're getting close. We're at that 30-minute mark, and I don't want to go too far. Cutting the television, changed me. As far as now, I wasn't being pumped with the news all the time. I don't want to be pumped with the news. I don't want to hear your news. I can get a little microscopic dose by just peeking onto Facebook and getting off, okay? I began to realize that it really wasn't cool to sterilize all the animals, and I don't want this to be a discussion or debate or to negate that, well, we're going to have animals all over the place, okay? Because it really isn't our right to sterilize them and to remove their sexual organs. I began to really realize on a deep level 25 years ago in 1995 when I was absolutely sure I was not going to have my son injected through pediatric well baby visits. And his father said, you're going to wreck him, you're going to ruin him, you're going to kill him. And I was so worked up, and I think I was so postpartum because of being a copper toxic woman and no one informing me, and doctors not even doing anything besides negating anything close to that. When I'd bring up amalgams or I'd bring up, I think I'm being poisoned. I think I'm toxic, Thankfully, I had changed my diet. Thankfully, I'd gotten rid of the TV. Thankfully, I was walking a lot. Thankfully, I had cleaned my womb for a couple of years prior, or things would have been really terrible, okay? We're learning about the fact checkers, right? Who in the hell is going to fact check me? I trust myself more than I trust any doctor. Any doctor. I trust myself. I know what I poop and pee and how I sleep and what I think and how I feel. And I know how to hair tissue test myself. And I trust that. It's okay with me if I wear clothing that has stains on it. That's just fine. Okay. It's okay with me that my hair is not striped and colored and manicured. It's okay that my hair doesn't feel like what I felt with most of my clients on the massage table, which is a head of hair that felt like hay. It was chemically processed hair that it didn't look beautiful to me because it wasn't even your natural color. So how can I see what your health is when you're disguising yourself? You're disguising yourself, okay? TV, magazines, social platforms are brainwashing you inter and multi-generationally about what you need to look like, smell like, what you need to eat, how you need to think, who you need to vote for, what rituals you should partake in. I don't want to partake in that. I want to be connected in community, okay? Fingernails. I cut my fingernails off to do a massage, and I keep them cut because now it really, really grosses me out. I don't really think that long fingernails are all that beautiful. They seem like they're actually, bacteria hazards to me now, right? They just look gross. Crap gets shoved in there. And if you are a functional natural goddess, you're going to cut your fingernails. Oh, Tara, you like that brand? I love Seventh Generation. Oh, I got my glasses on. I can read what you said here. Okay. We're also absorbing all kinds of mythology about eating protein and calcium. Okay, that's not true. Or that vegetarian diets are way too high copper for copper toxic people. That's also not true. It's not true at all. Animals have been fed copper sulfate, and even in many of the products that you're using copper toxic people, which you'll know when you do my hair tissue test, you should be doing your whole family. It says right on the back here. Let me see if I can find where it says. Copper sulfate. Okay, third ingredient. I read stuff. Right there. Copper sulfate. See it? Okay. All right. Not going to be as big as a deal as you're drinking your water from copper pipes. You've got a copper IUD. And I still want to do a whole video on copper toxic. Okay. You're really caught up with the status symbols. I know a few people, my son's friends, people that were close with my friends, that everything about their life is really show and tell. It's keeping up with the Joneses. They've really got to have the status symbols, their car, their fingernails, their pictures always have to be picture perfect. They're in a fairy tale. You can see it with the tiara and the gowns they're wearing and, the Christmas tree and everything. They're not really working on what really needs to be worked on right now, which is our air, our soil. Our soil, if you remember a couple videos back, that's your immunity, okay? So keeping up with the Joneses is deadly for the children because now that's all they know, right? And so even though they move away from it a little bit, it's always in there. It's like a program, okay? Vacations, your home decor, your businesses. We now don't know who's really being legit and who's not because everything is about charging, right? It's about securing energy, whether you call it money or currency or gold or silver or cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and blah, 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 blah. It's about constantly, doing this. And we'll even speak to it affectionately and say, well, of course it's a give and take. It's an energy give and take, right? But not necessarily. Okay. How about dogs? Are they really just pets? Are you really an owner, right? You leash them, you take your poop bag out, you get them sterilized, you feed them dog food out of a bag. They sit there just, crippling over, cataracting over on their eyes. Whether you spend $150 on a bag of dog food, or you spend, I've even dipped in recently and bought the V-Dog when I was moving because I thought, oh, I don't want to do this. That's why I've been showing plant-based bowls for dogs because you can do that with a little bit of meat, okay? All right, so I don't know if many of you have watched the movie The Matrix, but if you haven't, or if it's been a long time, I would go back and watch it. It's a 1999 movie. Go back and watch the movie Avatar because it's important and because they're making a sequel just like they are for The Matrix, because these are documentaries and they're not just entertainment. And one movie that's, quite a bit of an older movie, tuck this under my hat, that you may have seen in the past. And if you haven't, I'm going to strongly, highly, encourage you because it's going to bring a smile to your face, is a movie by the name of Idiocracy. And I know many of you have seen it, but it's just so apropos for today's world, okay? So let's see here. I wanted to say, if we're going to keep living this manicured life, right? Oh, and here, by the way, here's my other $3 shirt from Walmart. It is a $3 flannel in the women's section of Walmart. It's soft and cozy. It's just fine for me. I would have said, oh my gosh, you left California and you knew how to dress and you were stylish and you knew how to eat at all the trendy places and you drove a BMW and you had all this stuff going on. You've got a great brain. Some people would say, even my own father, how come you didn't marry someone really, really rich so you could be taken care of? Right? I said, Dad, that's prostitution. That's prostitution. It neither needs to be about that we want solid companionship. And I know that my guy is out there. I know that my son is actually bringing him to me. Someone who doesn't smoke, who doesn't need to do drugs, who doesn't need to do alcohol, who doesn't need a TV, who loves to walk in nature. What does that say? Oh, thank you, Tara. I know, $3. $3. It's great. It's soft. And so I like to wear, I just wear like a little sports bra, which mostly I don't, but, and just a little, $1 to $3 tank top underneath. You can leave it open a little bit. I would have called myself a woodchuck. Okay. My clients and I used to laugh when I first got to Cloquet. I was like, I am starting to feel like a who in Whoville. And I would see all the little who's come down and do the little Christmas parade. And years later, I got to really appreciate getting my mind out of the rat race, toning it down and wearing comfortable, functional clothing. Most of the time, it's not to say that I don't ever want to dress up, because I do and I can, and I sure know how to do it. But right now in my life, while most of us are involved in the world in this, operation. We're not really going anywhere that warrants getting really, really dressed up. So I get a shower, I brush and floss my teeth, scrub my face really good, put my body butter on my face, which is what I do every day. It's cacao, coconut, and organic shea, all three. I do it in a double boiler and then I whip it up and it treats me really, really well. I've got my hot toddy and I do my study, I do my walking, I do my reading, I do my working with clients, I do consults many times, each strong or weak. And people want to know, what's really going on. And when you have the years like I do, going on almost 40 years, it'll be 37 years when we hit 2021, that I've been helping people to unwind disease naturally, to reverse disease. Okay. I don't need to be a doctor. People need to know about their habits and what they can do to make themselves feel better and to make themselves function better. If we had higher functioning people like we did just 100 years ago, people that were thinking and active and high functioning, keeping their, pardon me, but keeping their shit together. Their shit's falling apart today. I've worked with women where I've said, if you could do this each day and this each day, you're going to build into, and they just, I don't have the energy. I don't have the time. I don't have the time. I go, you have 24 hours in a day. So if we can heal your thyroid enough, you'll stop procrastinating. I mean, how many people do you know, if it's not yourself, because I'll admit it was me for years, that you buy a book and you put it on the shelf, but you don't really ever get around to reading it? I mean, not really. You don't sit there and really savor the book and read it and really get the medicine, hear the person who wrote it. When I write a book, I want people to hear my voice, hear me as a personality and go, wow, she really gave me a lot in that book, or she gave me a lot in that live stream. She recommended things that she knows works and that she favors, and they might work really well for me, right? We know for a fact, truth about cancer, I really get tired of people telling me, give me the evidence. The evidence is I'm still standing and walking. And if you could see what I went through in the last almost 5 years with 5 major life changes, you'd be like, how in the hell are you even doing that? All right. And I've got plenty of client testimonials. We are living inside of a predatory matrix that has all kinds of tools, all different forms of agents. That's why you'll see me post sometimes no agency, right? I don't want to be chattel'ized. Chattel is what a woman was identified on an original marriage contract. When I studied law for those over 2 years, and furthermore, what I learned about law was being in the legal arena for almost 20 years was absolutely incredible. So there's no comparison when a lot of younger people invite me to this other Facebook group or this video from, Dr. Ox or Dr. Axe or Dr. any of these people. I'm like, I was studying that stuff about 30 plus years ago. I've been informing people about the matrix, even with Angie Lamonti. When I said, look at it, everyone walking by has got a blue suit and a red tie, or a black suit and a pinstripe suit. I mean, they're all shaving their head and conforming so they can be clean cut, right? And these programs are so deep, they're so deeply infecting you, that when I've asked other women, why don't you dreadlock your hair? She goes, I don't know, I'm just so afraid of what my neighbors are going to think, and my landlord and and I'm like, wait a minute. So you don't even have control. You don't even have options over your own hair, right? Now you watch, because I had long, thick, beautiful dreadlocks that they too started off for the first 2 years looking kind of wrangly. Okay. I wasn't all that proud about going out and looking at them, but I had them started my 3rd time. This is my 4th time, by a professional woman who did a really nice job. She really did. And I paid $350 with a $50 tip. It took 2 days of 16 to 17 hours. And thereafter, I got maintenance 2 or 3 times. and I completely quit. So for about the last 3 years, there was no maintenance. It was just my hair. And I really learned experientially, wow, so my hair was just going to do this anyway. So I overcame the program that I'm just going to have one big mass knot. It's going to be terrible back there. It's going to be too much. I can't handle that. Yes, you can. It's not that big of a deal. Your hair will divide. Look at, just like mine did. People have asked me, wow, they go, do you use that little like knitting tool? I'm like, no, I don't use any tools. I don't sit there and do what's called palm rolling and do this thing all the time and make them so they're sausages. I didn't. A lot of people that are Rastafari will say, Jah make it, or God make it, okay? It's the same thing, Jah, God. Jah make it, right? So, I mean, yes, it's a little bit loopy, but that's how you can tell the difference between someone who's got freeform and someone who's got manicured dreads, is that they're not perfect shape, They're like so. Look at this one. This one over here has got kind of a different shape. So really, when you're sleeping at night and you're kind of tossing and turning a little bit, and take your hair out of a scrunchie or a hat or anything else you got going on, and just, the movement that you do while you're sleeping, that friction starts to cause the hair to start to mat or to knot up, to lock up. Okay. So we don't want to live a lie. The more that you can unwind yourself. That's why I made my course, and I'm going to put the link down below. It's $12, and the course is called Domestication. I did the course about a year before my son died, and I had my long, beautiful dreadlocks. I was standing out on a summer day holding Pablo, and I really made this course nice with really succinct, shorter videos on different subjects. You can watch it and rewatch it. You own it for life. It's called Domestication. You are a human animal, and every 100 years, a major upgrade, a revision occurs, which changes your domestication. And that's what's being pumped in right now in the form of an injection. You need to be careful. You need to read about mRNA and what it does to the spiral of life within you, which you inherited from many, 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 many ancestors for a very long time. So you can start to unwind this by coming out of chemically processing and perming and dyeing and all the makeuping and all the fancy, fancy jewelry. This is a $12 necklace, which has my son's name on it, which you can easily buy on Amazon. We'll make a name with whatever you want. I wish I had one that was solid gold, so I take it off if I shower or take a bath, because it's an inexpensive necklace. You can do it. You really can. Unwind yourself, free your mind, liberate your mind. Share this video. If you think it's going to benefit someone else, share it and say, hey, just sit down and watch something productive for yourself instead of something that's going to keep you wound up in the system with all this. Remember the duck mouth? And I can't do it because I'm 59 and I'm kind of worn right now after what happened with my child. But the duck mouth, and then always the tongue sticking out and always this, and always showing the backside. We're not commodities. Respect yourself. Respect, like Lauryn Hill said, respect is just a minimum. When someone's going through pain, reach out, connect. Tell them you love them. Tell them you're there for them, support them. I don't want to learn from younger people as much as I still learn from everyone when it comes to what we're dealing with right now, again, on another 100-year cycle. We need a very, very highly experienced individual who's already made it through several runs through the matrix. Okay? So, yes. Yeah. Personal property, right? So, as long as you stay on the matrix, and if you watch that movie in 1999 like I did, and you turned around, and I had a college professor in the 80s for a course called Phantom Limb at Mission College in Santa Clara. And he had talked about really the premise of The Matrix before that movie even. This was in the 80s. The Matrix came out in 1999. So I have to wonder if he was even involved in the production of it, or if he knew that woman in California that had actually written that whole story out before it became a documentary or a movie. But literally, when I walk around, that's what I see is people wanting to be Pavlov's good dog, wanting to be obedient, facially diapering, muzzling, right? And then I'm starting to see more of the legalistic, scared folks going, even a friend of mine that immigrated from New York to Santa Cruz, right? I'm an original Santa Cruz. Like, that's a big deal to me. I'm Santa Cruz to the core. My son was raised in Santa Cruz till he was almost 7. He's Santa Cruz to the core. It's just in our blood. It's who we are. We're people connected with beautiful, warm mother out there, Pacific Ocean. But the parasites, the hypocrites and the parasites, the people that believe that they're more powerful because they've got money right now until it's gone from them, right? Or they've got more guns, or they've got more anger and they're more of a gang and they're more of this and they're more of that. The power rests where it's always rests, which is the high copper women that were grounded and able to truly help the people to benefit and to rise up, that the soils were magnificent, that the grandmother trees that have all been chopped down. Now you wait as this radiation game increases, this identification and cameras everywhere and locking everything and all this noise pollution, chirp, 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 as everyone's locking their vehicles and spying on everything. And you got to wonder, are they spying on me now? And, you sneeze. Oh my God, who's going to think I'm infected? Right? Let me just drop this. You sneeze. Most of the time, there's various reasons that we sneeze. You sneeze most of the time because I know I will sneeze. This has got a lot of raw honey and maple syrup in it. It's a sugar. So my immune system, if you want to call it that, my gut will register the sweeteners. It'll dip down a little bit. My nose will get slightly plugged like it is right now from drinking it for a couple of days. And I'll sneeze a few times and then I'll be done. All right. I don't want to keep going. Tara, thank you for joining me. Thank you so much. I love you all. Your support is going to help me to keep going so that I'm going to be able to bring more of these and help people. One love. And you make it a wonderful day.